All right, guys, continuing with Chapter 15, moving into a discussion about Marketing 4.0, basically marketing in the digital era. Philip Kotler writes, power has shifted to connected customers. We're talking about those that are using online platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, these days now even TikTok and Instagram, using some of these platforms as a form of citizen journalism. We're even in a realm where, to a lot of younger generations, those that have made their presence online are becoming as popular, if not even more so, than traditional celebrities that we think of from Hollywood. Social circles have become the main source of consumer influence, overtaking advertising and marketing communications. We're seeing a lot more of those that are online being used as endorsers of different products and services. But we're also seeing Joe Citizen and Jane Citizen become more important in terms of the various reviews that they post online on different platforms. Matter of fact, most customers believe more in the F factor than in traditional marketing communications. They're looking to their friends, their family, to those on Facebook and Twitter, to those that post reviews on Amazon, because of what we talked about in the last video, the sense that the sort of evaluations that's made by regular people are seen as more real and genuine and are therefore trusted more. So what we're seeing, we talked in the last video about the P's of marketing. We're now seeing where we are moving more towards the 5 A's, and we'll discuss what those are in just a second. Basically, the market segments particularly guarded against advertising, and we're talking about advertising in the traditional sense here. We are seeing that youth tend to not like advertising as much. We're seeing women become more critical of it, and that's an important demographic. Many times they control what's bought for the household. And then the so-called netizens are those that are the committed citizens of the web who embrace openness and sharing with others. And no geographical boundaries restrict them from their influence. So you've got these groups of people that are becoming more vocal, more prominent, and more heard when it comes to the things that they are interested in or not interested in. And they not only share that they have favorability or not favorability with certain products and services, but they also tell you why. So, the 5 A's. The customer path begins with consumers being aware of a product. You have to know that a thing exists. Then it moves to the product having some sort of appeal. You have to want or need that product in some fashion. Then it moves to a consumer asking for more information, often on things like price, on features, maybe comparing that particular product with similar products or products from other companies. It then moves on to consumers who act to purchase the product and become a customer, pull the trigger, if you will. And then finally, the ultimate goal of marketing in the digital era, the customer becomes an advocate for the product and promotes it via word of mouth, online and offline. So getting some quote unquote free advertising from those that actually use and like the product. So this is what we're seeing now in terms of marketing that's becoming more and more powerful. Awareness, appeal, a customer asking for more information, then making the act to purchase it, and then becoming an advocate for the product or service. With the advent of the internet and the growth of social media, owned and earned media became much more important in the marketing mix. Again, the owned media is that which is actually controlled by various brands and organizations. That would be a company website, various social media platforms, and then earned media would be the sorts of promotion that is shared by customers and others, especially online. So you have the narrative that a company is putting out, And then you have the narratives that the actual users and the consumers themselves are actually saying in terms of what a product can or can't do, if it's a good value or not, whatever reputation they may perceive that your brand or your product or your organization may have. Those things are becoming much, much more important. Because advocacy became the ultimate goal of marketing, earned media became an important concern for marketers for two main reasons. Number one, because earned media is more credible than advertising for reasons that we've already talked about. It's people willingly telling others about their experience with a product or service. And probably the best part of it, especially if the feedback given by others is favorable to you, it's free. Earned media is free. You're not paying these people to go out and share their experience or what they like or what they dislike. They're doing it out of their own free will. And that also makes it much more genuine to the public at large. So if they're sharing and they're sharing in a positive way, that's like the icing on the cake for a brand or an organization. Social media and online review sites are vitally important because up to 90% of all consumers read online reviews before they buy a product, and up to 40% form their opinion by reading just 3 product reviews. So it only takes a few people to put out a certain narrative in order for them to make a decision in a rather quick fashion whether or not they want to buy your product or service. Now, if media salespeople are going to help their customers get results and be successful, they should be familiar with the business decisions that a company must make. And here's the things that they need to look at. First, which type of customers to target. Who is your audience? Second, what type of product is the company selling? Third, whether a company's business model is scalable, and we'll talk more about this in just a bit. Fourthly, which stage in the business cycle a company is in. We'll also discuss that. And then what generic competitive strategy a company decides to employ. So let's get into these things. First off, let's talk about the type of business that a business is in. A lot of acronyms here, basically determining who it is they're trying to reach. And we're talking in a very general sense about audience here at this point. We're not even getting into demographics or psychographics yet. You've got business to consumer businesses, B2C. You've got business to business, B2B. Now, within the business to consumer, there's 2 different avenues that they may go into. There's the folks that sell to consumers directly. It's called B2C-D. You may also hear it called direct to consumer, DTC for short. And then B2CR is when a business sells to a consumer, but they do it by means of a retailer, whether it's an online marketplace or a brick and mortar retail store. Now, answering this first question about what type of business they are and who they're targeting, this is basically going to determine what marketing channels are going to be most effective for a company's KPIs. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators. These are basically going to be the metrics that they're going to use to determine success when it comes to informing the public and ultimately selling to the public their products and services. Now, next we move on to whether something is tangible or intangible in terms of what it is that they're offering. You want to demonstrate a tangible product because, well, you can. You can show how it works. You can describe how it tastes. You can make an emotional connection to the product. It's got some sort of physicality to it. It's got presence in time and space. Meanwhile, an intangible product is more difficult to sell. Many marketers will try to find a way to make it tangible in some way and create an emotional connection to that. You see this a lot with insurance. For example, companies like Progressive and Geico and Liberty Mutual, the way that they frame the particular insurance products that they sell, and they try to turn it into something that people can picture, visualize, to make it something that they see as a more real constructed sort of thing as opposed to some sort of a concept. Is the product or service scalable or non-scalable? A business is scalable if what it sells can be created once and sold over and over again at a very low increased marginal cost. So here we are talking about economies of scale. If you're able to produce more and more for less and less of a cost, that is something that is scalable. Now, because scalable businesses can be quite profitable, the return on marketing investment can be considerable. So reaching as many potential customers as possible is going to be the right marketing objective for a scalable business, because you have the capacity to be able to sell to many, many people without a lot of effort or material cost. Now, a business is not scalable if its prices are for services based on time spent with a customer. So, someone that's charging per hour for something. There's only so much time in a day, and one person generally can only do one thing at one time. So, you can't base an economy of scale on that. In that you're expending that time, you're expending that resource of time, and that's what you're getting paid for. You can't multiply that in some fashion, except without increasing personnel costs and them being able to do more and that sort of thing. But even so, it's still not scalable in that even those that you add to the staff only have so many hours in a day. Then we look at the life cycle of a business, and this is something that helps to understand where a business is in terms of its effectiveness, in terms of its staying power. Think about it in terms of the way that we live our lives. We start out as infants, then we grow up to become children and teenagers, then into adults, and then we move into old age. We kind of look at it a similar way in the life cycle of a business. First, development. At this initial stage of a business, marketing money is typically not available. They're brand new. They don't have a lot of capital. So the drivers of growth are product features and benefits, and they're going to look for a lot of earned media. They're going to try to get other people to share about who they are, talk them up, tell other people about them. And that earned media, again, is free. So they don't have to spend a lot of money on advertising costs. Hopefully, the word of mouth will help them to be able to build some momentum. Then there's the introduction. Basically, here we're seeing the drivers being publicity, PR, or public relations, and promotion. And this is where a company attempts to make people aware of and interested in the product. Third stage in the life cycle is growth. Here is where we get into more formal advertising being used to generate sales, and then for the company to be able to grow as rapidly as possible as they get out in a mass fashion the message about who they are and what they want you to buy from them. Then a company reaches maturity. When a business reaches this stage, its marketing efforts should be in media channels that can target customers with personalized messages that are designed to retain them so that they purchase products more often. So here, when we're talking about a product being mature, word has gotten out about them. A lot of people know who they are. And so you're trying to retain them as customers. You're trying to build up within them a sense of loyalty to your brand, to your product, One of the great ways to do this is to sponsor different events and experiences to reward customers for being loyal. Different types of loyalty clubs, for example, are a good way to do this as well. So the more that you can bring someone into your ecosystem and keep them as a customer, those sort of things are going to be what helps a company be able to stay in this matured state of being. And then you get to a business's decline. Businesses in this stage must super serve the customer base that they still have. A business should consider personal selling to establish and maintain a humanized emotional connection with its best customers. Again, we tend to use that emotional aspect in terms of how we feel about brands and organizations. And if we feel like emotionally we're being served well by a particular brand, we may continue to be loyal to them, if for no other reason, for nostalgic reasons, but also because that kind of conjures up that sense of that this product has been with us for a long time. They're walking alongside us, and therefore we continue with the legacy that we had come to know of them. Now, there are 3 generic competitive strategies that a business has to choose. First option, cost leadership. This requires that companies have lower costs of producing, selling, and distributing a product than their competitors do. Now, what we're saying here is that they don't necessarily have to have the lowest price, nor do they need to advertise the lowest price. Because unless a company can execute and maintain leadership in the cost of doing business, it can't be profitable selling at the lowest prices. You still have to make a profit margin. But there's going to be that sense that people are getting the most value for the dollars that they are spending. Whatever the price of your product is, it needs to be in the minds of the consumer worth that much money. In a differentiation strategy, a firm seeks to be unique in its industry along with some dimensions that are widely valued by buyers. In other words, what makes this company different from someone else? Is their product better? Is the customer service better? Does the brand or organization align with different values or beliefs that I as a consumer have? Those sort of things that help me to say that because of this company is better than the other company. And then a business employing a focus strategy attempts to find a market niche that is being poorly served by competitors or in which there are no competitors, and then attempts to super serve customers. Now, in the focus strategy, we kind of go back to the 2 other options in a certain way, and these are various ways to look at a focus strategy. They could focus on cost, in which a business seeks a cost advantage in its niche. They could also focus on differentiation, in which a business seeks differentiation in its niche. So they're kind of similar to what we've already talked about, except that the focus is generally going to be in maybe a smaller populated market or an underserved market that only certain types of people are going to be interested in. And there's advantages to that in that if you are seen as catering to a certain type of audience where perhaps they don't have a lot of options for things like what you are providing, then there's a better chance of them being loyal to you as you go about with the way that you do business and the things that you provide. With that, we're going to take a break. We will finish up the chapter over in the next video.